Hi and welcome back, and this is part 6 in the Parallax tutorial series, and in this one we're going to do some basic animation on the camera, and then I'm going to show you how to render it into a movie file. In the next part, part 7, I'll show you how to go back and edit the animation of the camera if you need to, if you make a mistake or you just want to tweak the animation to make it faster, slower, things like that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do in basic animation is we're going to be using the timeline down here quite a bit. So quick orientation. If you left click and drag down here in the timeline, you'll see that you drag a little line, a little bar around, and that's called the play bar. And that basically allows you to view your animation and play through it. Of course, I don't have anything right now. Okay, so down below the timeline, you'll see a start box and a end box, and that's your start frame and your end frame. You always want to keep your start frame at 1, so you can kind of leave that as it is. Your end frame right now, it says 250 by default, and you can left click inside there and change it to any number you want. The way Blender works right now is that it plays your animations and makes them at 24 frames per second. So if I want a 10-second long animation, I can come in here and I can change it from 250 to 240. So I'll type in 240 and I'll press return, and now the end is 240. So now I have a perfect 10-second animation. The little box to the right of that shows you what frame you're currently on. And so as you click and drag through the timeline, you'll see that that number changes. If I left click inside here and I type in a specific number, let's say 100, press return, it will automatically jump my playhead, the little play bar here, to frame 100. So that's really nice and quick. And then last but not least, these little controllers over here, you probably guessed, these allow you to control your animation once you have it. Of course, there's play, which you press play and it will play through. And of course, stop. The first button will jump you to the beginning of your animation. The last button will jump you to the end of your animation. And this button here and this button here with the little triangles pointing to the left and to the right will jump you to a previous keyframe and a future keyframe. And we'll start making keyframes in a moment so you'll understand what those are. Okay, so animation 101. So what I'm going to do is the animation I'm going to do is I'm going to start the camera here away from the parallax photos, and then I'm going to have it animate forwards on the negative x-axis going into the shot. So it's going to move in on the left-hand side of the boy, moving forward into the photograph, which I think is a nice but simple and really cool effect. Okay, so the first step in animation is you want to set your frame down here in the timeline. So I'm going to set my frame to frame 1. So I'm currently on frame 1. Now you need to select the object you want to change. So I'm going to right click on my camera and my camera selected. Step 3 in animation is you need to tell Blender to record the camera's position. You need to tell Blender to remember information about the camera. So to do that, we insert a keyframe. So to insert a keyframe, you put your mouse pointer over the window that you are in, you press the letter I for insert, and you get this big insert keyframe menu. So we have location, rotation, and scaling. So location means Blender's going to record its location, of course, where it is in XYZ space. Rotation is going to record any changes in rotation, and scaling would be any changes in scaling. Now you can't really scale a camera, so that doesn't really apply here. Below these three, you've got combinations. So lock rot is location and rotation. Lock rot scale is a really popular one because it's all three, location, rotation, and scaling at the same time. So when you're animating, you want to think about what kinds of changes will this object be doing. And in this case, our camera is only going to be changing its location. It's not going to be rotating or doing any fancy camera effects. It's just moving straight forward. So it's only location. All right, so I'm going to create these two keyframes. So I'm going to press I, and I'm going to say insert keyframe on location. So I'll just left click. And when I did that, if you look down here in the timeline, you'll see a little yellow line, indicating that there is a keyframe on frame 1. Okay, so there's no animation yet. What I need to do now is I'm going to go to my last frame of my animation, frame 240. So remember, the steps in animation are make the change in the timeline. I just did that. I went to frame 240. Then come up here and select your object. That's step 2. Step 3 is to make the change to your object. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move it on the x-axis. So G for grab, X for the x-axis, and I'm going to go ahead and move it in, and you can see that I'm doing the actual move on my left-hand side, but on my right-hand side I'm watching and seeing how far I want to move in. So I'm going to go in about that far right there and left-click to accept, and you can see my camera's moved in like that. Now I need to tell Blender to record that change. So again, I press I for insert keyframe, and I'm going to say I want you to record and remember the location change. Okay, that is it. I now have a simple animation. I'm going to rewind, and now I can press play, and you can actually see the camera moving in, and you can see it happening in both windows at the same time. So that is pretty nice, and I like the speed, and I like where it's going, and there it is, and you'll see it's repeating the loop. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save. So file, save, and I think we'll end the video tutorial here, and in the next video I'll show you how to render this out as an animation. See you then.